Okay, so as mentioned, I will be talking about women's mental health. So basically, the thing is, what I'm focusing and what's my motto is here is that every gender goes through some of the other turmoil. However, the gender of woman in specific has usually goes through many turmoils as well. But where it makes the difference is that women are considered inferior in the society, and their mental health is very differently set and how than compared with men. And the issues that the women face usually goes in background because our society, the Indian society in specific, if I have to speak, usually focuses more on men and manpower. So today I will be focusing on those issues which are already have already been existing in the background, but people just don't address it, and it's very normal for them. Like, okay, this is how women works or functions, but these are the issues which it really needs to be focused. So I would like to begin. Why is it just women and not men? So basically, the thing is that the gender role of a woman is very different than of men. In an Indian society, in typical, I'm focusing on this Indian society only for the time being, that women are always considered inferior, an inferior sex. And usually there are many instances where others take decision on behalf of women, thinking that a woman won't be rational enough to take their own decision. So these are the gender roles why the woman feels that they lack of autonomy and control over their own life, which is very much associated with depression and anxiety. Because the results that the others take, I mean the decisions that the others take, they might not be satisfied with the result, but they aren't given the freedom to talk about it or speak about it in public. So this is one of the reason why women is much more vulnerable to mental health problems than men. And the next is, which is very common, is that gender-based violence. This is also a very contributing factor why women is very vulnerable to the society. Uh, People in the meeting, you will be hearing dowry deaths and others. There are very many instances. There are laws against violence. So this feeling of inferior and not being able to express, these are some of the social factors that make vulnerable to women. Other than that, there are major life events and hormonal changes in women that usually makes them vulnerable. So there are mainly three stages that a woman goes through, which mainly these are, if I have to categorize women in three stages, major life events or life changes happens. These are the three stages. One is puberty, one is pregnancy, and one is menopause. So I will be focusing on each stage and how it affects the mental health, and why. I won't say affect, but I would say why a woman makes vulnerable to mental health problems. So, as we all know, puberty is basically teenage years that we speak of. It goes through many development, like physically, socially, and others. So, this is a time of change. Similar to puberty is a pregnancy, the stage of pregnancy where a woman also goes through many changes, hormonally, physically, and a lot. They go through. I will be focusing on each stage, and the last stage, as we're talking about, is the menopause, where the periods that is very considered menstruation of the woman ends. So this is a huge stage where a woman goes through a hormonal change, and it's a very major contributing factor to many mental health problems. Till now, is there any question anyone would like to ask? I am taking it as no.
No questions from our side. I'll just check if the audience have any questions. Just a minute.
Okay. If anybody is having question, they can also drop it in the comment box. I will attend to it later, definitely.
Sure.
Okay. So, as I was speaking, puberty is a age between 18 to 13 to 18 years, and this is a phase of puberty where usually women attain sexual and reproductive capacity. So what basically happens is that at this point of stage, there is physical development and there is hormonal development. The earliest signs of puberty can be understood in girls, like young girls, like they start to grow breast buds, and physically there is a change. Like this is a stage where a girl develops from a girl to a woman. You can at this stage slowly the pelvic region, they expand, there are breast buds, and then there is ovaries that start to release eggs. So there is this stage where menarche happens. Menarche is basically the onset of menstrual periods in women. uh, People might be familiar with the term and what happens, but I would like to just explain it in a very brief. So basically, this is where it happens at the age of 12 or 13 years, when there is a start of menstrual periods. And it occurs usually late in the puberty, but the changes in the puberty, like physical changes, it is visible from around 9 years or 10 years, like the physical changes. And at the end of it, 12 or 13 years, or sometimes 14 also, they usually, there is, this is very considered normal, that this is a good stage where a woman attains sexual maturity and they start to menstruate. But this doesn't mean that they completely achieve a reproductive capacity, because this is just the beginning. Women don't attain it reproductive capacity immediately after the menarche. It takes time for them to develop. So you can say that around 15 or 16 years, they attain a full maturity where they are ready to conceive. I mean, they can reproduce a child. So now, I would like to focus on why the period of puberty is so important. Uh, sorry. So typically, adolescence is a very unique and formative stage, and there are many changes that happens in a body, not only just physical but emotional, because there is so many changes hormonally. This is a stage where women usually they if I have to say, they go through a lot of emotional, like there are heightened emotions. It's like a, if I put it from in a scale, then there will be like suddenly a very low side to a suddenly very high emotions. So usually this is the reason why we need to focus on puberty and adolescence to address mental health issues, because changes in this stage actually affect the adulthood. So, if I have to say why is it at risk, as I've said, that is this is a stage where people go through many changes. So, adolescence is at this point of time. There, as I said, there is heightened emotions. So these heightened emotions needs to be controlled and settled in a certain way, so that at this stage they are not very versed with decision making, and this due to this extreme emotions, there is a chance that teenagers may involve themselves with risky behaviors and poor decision making, and the outcomes are drastic, which affects not only that stage but also adulthood and the later stages of life. And at this stage, there is a psychologist known as Eric Erikson. Is anyone familiar with his theory of development?
I have heard of his name, but I'm not that familiar with his theory.
Okay, so basically the thing is that Eric Erikson basically gave a theory of development where at a certain stage, um, identity versus role confusion. I will like to focus on this stage. So he gave a theory of all the stages, and where in every stage somebody, one or the other, they go through some conflicts, and if these conflicts are not resolved, it develops to mental health problems. To be briefing about, this is what his theory was. So at this stage of this is a stage of adolescence, which he says that he specifically mentions that this is a stage of identity versus role confusion. So at this stage, since they're developing, their sense of identity has started to take place. They knew they're versed in a certain way, and at this stage, the idea of self-concept, the personal identity, and the thing that this feeling that I am becoming a woman or a man. So at this stage, they basically develop an identity that they carry for the rest of their adulthood. So at this stage, usually, since you can understand it, it's a bit unsettling for them, because there are a lot of changes going on, not only just physically hormonally, but also they're developing the self-image. So at this point of time, they can start as question that who am I, what is my purpose. It's very similar to existentialism, like existential crisis, which we call. So at this stage, teenagers are very vulnerable to identity versus role confusion. They develop their identity and they sometimes get confused about their role. But by the end of 18 years, they kind of have developed an identity, self identity of themselves. So at this stage, that is the reason why teenagers may develop many psychological disorders. I wouldn't be terming it as disorders, but there are certain things that they couldn't cope up with, the stress that the age is bringing. So often it leads to some sort of problems, right? So you can just go through quick look at the slide, and these are the problems usually. If I have to categorize, then I will categorize them in this order. And I will be focusing definitely into all the specifics. So, the first thing that is emotional disorders. So, emotional, as I said, heightened emotions. Excuse me. So, heightened emotions result in many ways. So, there is the emotional disorders that often teenagers develop. Heightened, this includes anxiety and depression. So, at this stage of time, as I mentioned, identity, they're developing the identity and there is confusion in what they are. So at this unsettling, they might develop like, okay, I don't know what is happening, but I am low. So, is there any parents in the meeting? I mean,
Ma'am, I'm sure they'll be watching the YouTube stream. There would be parents also.
okay, okay. So at this point of time, as I was saying, people may develop anxiety disorders, which involves panic attack and excessive worry, because this is a time of development. And if I go through statistics, then it is estimated that 3.6% out of 10 to 14 years old and 4.6% of 15 to 19 years of old experience an anxiety disorder. Even the rates of depression is as high as 2.8% in the whole population. So even also there are behavior problems that arise at this certain stage, which I will also categorize it as emotional disorders, like conduct disorders, where this heightened emotions they don't know how to control it, and in the process, since they don't know how to control it, there are maladaptive ways to cope up with stress. A very simple example I can give you is that even the Bollywood movies also sometimes portray that there is some sort of an argument, and suddenly there's so much that they just take the thing, throw it away, or break something. There's an anger outburst, like sudden. So these are some of the instances which can be uh, categorized as conduct disorders, because they don't know how to control their anger and emotions. So as a result, these things they affect a lot, and they make them vulnerable to developing problems of anxiety and depression mainly. Also, there are certain times which depression can take an extreme low road, which can lead them to suicide. I will be focusing on the risk-taking behavior as well and social withdrawal as well. So the other problems that they may go through is, as I mentioned, behavioral and conduct disorders. Like they may get into some antisocial works and criminal behavior. Like at this stage of time, it's a typical teenage mentality. I have gone through that stage, and I can totally relate. And right now, I have an example of me itself, that when I was growing up, there was a certain point where I could see that my parents are drinking. So I'm like, I'm also an adult now. Since I'm closer to 18, I've crossed 13 and all. So I was like, okay, this drinking is something that the adults do. So I'm an adult, so I can do. I had no idea what it led to or anything, but there was a certain point of time where I sat with my friends, and I did not know how to exactly take the hard drinks in a certain way. So which where I ended up vomiting out it was a bad memory. So that's what I'm saying. So in the verse of discovering themselves, there are many certain risk-taking behaviors and behavioral problems that we usually have, and these are some of the risk-taking behaviors teenagers undertake because they don't know how to handle it, and they are just, just this is the feeling that we are growing up fast and we want to grow more, learn about others. And eating disorders is also very typical in women in general, because at this point of stage, since there are many hormonal changes that usually takes a shift of change in body weight, like body mass index, and the hormone change, even the skin pattern often very, which we call pimples and all. This is a very common problem. So as a result, while in woman is basically a thing that people say is as a beauty standard or norms that the woman needs to fit. I mean, I'm not saying it's me, but often society expects women to fit into a social and beauty norm, and it is expected that like even in the movie fashion, You would see even the models that they go, they try to maintain a zero figure to fit in everything. And this is what the standard has been. A woman has to be skinny with small waist and a perfect curves in the body. So as a result, this is a stage where they try to get involved and they try to develop an identity. So as a woman, as a girl, as I'm developing into a woman, we decide that we are going to fit that social norm that is already there in us. And changes in the body weight is hampering us. It is creating a congruency or a disagreement with my mind. I know that woman is supposed to be this and I am not this, but I have to be this woman, skinny with small waist and long hair, glowing skin. So this often leads sometimes to eating disorders such as anorexia, that is restricting food and calorie intake. They try to restrict calories, and they do not eat as much as they do because they want to stay skinny, right? It also includes, and often, like, even when in a very restrictive diet, often it's like at certain point you just have an exhaustion that I'm dieting the whole day and not able to eat. So again, this can also result in eating where they have no control how much amount of food they're having. Like, you are stressed and you don't know how to handle it, and you saw food, and what you do is, despite of the fact that you're full, you are still eating. You're like eating, like literally you don't have any control over it. And at the sudden point where a guilt hampers that if I eat, I'm gonna be fat, which doesn't match the norm that I'm supposed to. So what you do, what some people do in bulimia, is that they go out, they forcefully make themselves vomit or use laxatives, like overuse of laxatives, so that they reduce the weight. So these are very typical teenage problems that appear because their body mass index is changing. And if these things go in extreme, they often, again, is risk taking behavior is a very big part of it. So yes, teenagers kind of get suicidal, and there are other mental health problems that come out of these problems that they are facing. Similar to that, as I've said, suicide and self-harm. So these are the very much peak things that usually goes ups and down with them, like risk-taking, sexual behavior suddenly because their body is changing, and so is their sexual identity, right? So in the verge of taking a risk that okay, I am discovering myself, I'm discovering my sexuality. Even movies also influence. We see teenage movies, the teenagers are doing this, they're having, it's a sign of being cool that you're smoking and you're drinking. So people around you is like, okay, they're smoking, drinking, I have to be them. I want to be cool, so I have to be them. So they start taking risk taking behaviors without knowing what consequences they will have. I gave my example as typical. It was in a homely setting and it was good. Okay, that it ended up bad, but it was at least in the homely setting. But these are the things that I took. There are many teenagers who doesn't even have these things and they just directly go on to something they don't know what they're landing into. Which again, there are problems like teenage pregnancies. They suddenly conceives, or they engage themselves into substance abuse and sexual risk taking behaviors, and sometimes often illegal activities, drugs like hardcore drugs, weed or LSD. So this is very common in teenage years. So the question is how to know that when your child is seeking for help or somebody needs this help. So at this certain point of time, you can question yourself. These are some of the few questions you can ask yourselves, thinking that do the child needs the help, right? So just ask Jesus whether you're like, does your child have at least one good friend, or does your child at least have an adult to talk with, or whatever issues they are going through, are they able to share or not? These are the certain, because there is social withdrawal. There's the main thing that is very evident is social withdrawal, or something you feel that is something is not right. So these are some of the questions you can ask yourselves before reaching out to help your child and seeking them help, and how to support it, because other helps, external helps can extend the help to a certain point. But we, being a family member to an adolescent, being a parent to an adolescent, the main thing is that we support that child who is growing, and other than us there is no one else who can do it, because a child is developing and we are the support system, we are the family. The outside world is outside, but we are the family, we are the primary people a child will believe in. So we are the best person to provide the support. And how you can do it: when your child is speaking about some issue, don't just ignore it or just let it be. Okay, okay, I will listen it later, or this is very common, it happens to everyone, leave it. That is not supported. When a child is coming to you and saying something, address it. Even I know there are times when parents are busy. At certain households, there are two parents who are working at the same time, so it gets gets difficult to balance between household, family, and child, and often this leads to isolation. But when a child is ready to approach or is saying, just put all those things at aside and listen to them. Just nothing, no comments, nothing, just accept the way they are. This is a very good way to help your child open up. Then there are striving for balance. That is, a teenage, they find it difficult to juggle and balance everything. uh, they're not very sure how to do it, as there are so many heightened emotions. They just don't know how to control these things that is happening in their body. Extremities, what I'm speaking over here is extremities. So help them to communicate what they're feeling and help them, just talk with them to help them see balance. And the most important thing over here is that say them that no one is perfect. We ourselves has gone through these stages, right? So this is a very common thing that one goes through, and it is coming to you, but it's not impossible to get through. It's just that it needs maybe some time to sort it out. So don't make them feel they are unwanted or this is not perfect, so you won't be accepted. Just help them to seek and strive for the balance. And as I was saying, welcome the conflict. Do not just let it go at a side. Just welcome the conflict and help them accept that it's okay to be not perfect at times. It's okay to mess up. We are still the same person. And if I have to say, you're still the same person and you can do it. It's okay. We all mess up. We are also as parents. No parenting style is perfect. So give them a space to express themselves and accept them. And the next is that owning the parenting space. That is, often since there are the heightened emotions, and sometimes teenagers at this stage they're like, I'm adult, and they start to grow distant with the parent. These are very common problems you will hear in every household. So basically, at certain point of time, when you are trying to say them that this is the right or this, you are not say them, but helping them to realize that what you did was something wrong. And a teenager, typical teenager, will never agree that they are wrong. They will always say they are right. They are growing. They know what they are doing. So often, when just to escape this situation, they may just push a button of, or maybe what I will say is attack on a very personal level. So at this point of time, if as a parent, as an adult, if we just lose the leash and we just let our emotions get in, this is actually going to distance the relation more. So instead, when they are trying to say it, when a toddler is challenging the rules and they are trying to push the boundaries, just don't react to them. Try to make them accept that this is topic is not about me, but it's about you. I'm trying to make you realize a point. You are saying your point of view, I am trying to say you mine. So as an adult, I expect you to listen to me once before you say anything, before you make a comment about it. So do not leave the leash or get your own emotions cloud the thing. Keep your emotions at the bay while handling a situation with teenagers, like this type of situation. Uh, this is, I guess, yes. These are very helpful styles that can help with a teenaging parent. And as I was talking, the second stage of it is pregnancy. So, pregnancy is typically a period of gestation from fertilization of an egg through development of fetus and ending at birth. So, how does a stage of pregnancy leads to vulnerable to a woman? So, it's basically that a news of pregnancy is usually happy for a woman, but however, at this certain stage of time, a woman goes through changes, not only physically. They know that their body is going to change, not only just physically. Their hormones is at the peak, right? So, at pregnancy, even there are many hormonal changes that a woman goes through. So basically, that is the reason why pregnancy is a very important stage where we have to address that a woman is very vulnerable to mental health problems, and we can reduce the impact of these things by helping them, right? So basically, as I was saying, these are some of the reasons why a woman is very vulnerable at this stage. There is a role. there is a change in the role of becoming a mother. Like, you are a woman and your life has been one way, but now you are going to give birth to someone whose responsibility you're going to take. So in Indian parenting, in Indian culture, I'm generalizing over here, that often there is expected that you're going to become a mother. So you need to stop working and focus your time on the family. Otherwise, what kind of good mother are you? Again, there is some other person will say it's okay to work in a way, like you have your child, but you have to provide your child. So it's okay for a mother to work. So there are so many contrasting view around, and it gets difficult for you to, like, I'm already in a progress, like I'm going to, my role is going to change, what to do. This is a confusion that happens. So at these this is so you can imagine that these are the points why a woman is suddenly, there is a drop in the emotions and stuff, or in a mood level, to anxiety and depression, right? And these affect also a relationship. Like, that woman, as I was saying, woman has a standards of beauty. So your body is changing, and for a woman, it's always important to hold up to the beauty and youth that they always have. So they're like, if I'm losing it because I'm growing fat, my body is changing, my breasts are changing, my hips are changing. So what? It's going to change my relationship, because this is very important aspect of a relationship: beauty, physical beauty. At least to a certain percentage of weightage is given to beauty. So this is another thing that makes them vulnerable, right? And the concept that whether I will be a good parent or a bad parent, or the physical health problems that is related to pregnancy and fear of childbirth, because we all know that childbirth, the process of childbirth is very painful, right? Even if it's a C-section or a natural birth, it is a painful process, and a woman goes through a lot at this stage of time. So this is also a fear that a woman goes to: what will happen, what is coming next, I don't know what's going to be there. So these are all the reasons why a woman is vulnerable to mental health problems, along with factors like a traumatic past, or relationship problems, or a previous pregnancy loss, or a young pregnancy, lack of support, and infertility treatments. These all factors together contribute to feelings like this: am I crazy, or what is irritating me, or am I depressed? Is it common to feel this way? Am I bad? Does this make me bad as a person? So these are the things why, these are the thoughts that can come out of it. So these are the reasons why mainly 1 in 5 women develop mental health problems during the pregnancy or after birth. Everyone will be very versed, because right now the awareness of pregnancy, the postpartum depression is recognized. Like, even in our mother's era, I mean my mother, uh, the concept of postpartum depression wasn't given any weightage. It's like, yeah, you have a child and you are not happy about it, it was supposed to be a judgment call. But now, this concept of postpartum depression is very common. Even doctors know it, and many counselors work through conceived mothers, the people who are already going through pregnancy, to make them prepare for the role that there is upcoming, right? So, along with the hormonal changes, there are these are the emotional changes that a woman goes through. So together, all this postpartum depression and everything that they go, it's together put into one term, that is prenatal mood and anxiety disorders. This whole feeling of not being able ready, then feeling very low, or feeling a heightened emotion, what will happen next, prone to anxiety, and the bodily changes. As I said, I talked about the factors that contribute to it. So this whole thing comes under prenatal mood and anxiety disorders, which can develop at any point of pregnancy and up for a year or two after having the baby. So what are the very common symptoms of this one? As I said, extreme emotions, feeling very low or suddenly heightened emotions, feeling a fear. This is something in the background. So these are the feelings usually that a person faces if she is in a prenatal mood and anxiety disorder. So how we can help a woman with this? So the best thing is to connect with them. They are going through a lot, and maybe they are not very active in putting into words, because everyone around you are going to be a mother, they're giving a happy face, and they assume that you are also happy. But there are many things that are going in the background. So the best thing is to connect connect the woman with the people that she could be sharing, that is another maybe pregnant mother. So the best thing is to be a part of the group, in some of the mental I will say support groups. Yes, there are support groups, there are tons of support groups, so be a part of it. Talk about what you're feeling, say about what you're feeling, because there is no judgment calls. Every You may say one thing and there will be another person who will say, yes, I'm also going through the same thing. So this is the best. This is also a way to do it. And never restrict the boundaries. So keep learning, read paper, read documentaries, ask colleagues about the stage when they went through this certain point of life. So it helps you to, like, say, normalize yourself, and keeping these feelings aside. That am I crazy? Because this is very common. It's just that women often find it difficult to express themselves, because our society often expects women to stay calm and quiet about their problems, because that is the way women should behave. There are many places where it's still followed. So if you are showing emotions as a woman, it is often sometimes considered bad. So women just keep it to themselves, they do not speak, right? So the best thing is to read about them and watch the documentary, know about what is going through, and then just help it. Be active in it. Do not just restrict it. Do not just stop the pregnancy or every activity because I'm pregnant, I'm going to leave this, because it's a role change, obviously. But that doesn't mean that that is only just the center. It's going to be a part of your life, not your whole life, right? So the best thing is whatever you're doing, just keep it continuing, just don't leave it. Keep this whole thing continuing to a certain point, and just take care of your health, obviously, in parallel. And give that, if you see a chance to do an act of kindness, do it. Give it. It's not bad to do it, and it also makes you good, because if you're doing a proactive pro social behavior, it gives you a happy feeling, which is good for you. And take notice. Remember that there is always simple joys of life, right? So do not just leave them or focus on the negative, but also focus on the positive, the little joys that it's bringing to you, right? And then finally, the third stage of which is of a woman is menopause. I'm very sure people are well versed with the term menopause. So it's basically, it marks the end of a woman's period in reproductive years. While for some it may be it's something they would like, okay, fine, it's over, they accept the fact. But for some, menopause may be a time of isolation, of frustration. So the average age of menopause is basically 51, and but the body, our biology clock, ticks way behind back to it. Like if one person is having a menopause at the age of 51, the signs of menopause may start to show from 48, 49, or maybe back to it. So this stage before the menopause is basically called as perimenopause. This is the time before the person is having menopause. So basically, as I've talked about, that a woman's period is very much associated with the secretions of estrogen and progesterone. And when your time of menopause is approaching, these levels starts to diminish. Now your body is very used to having these hormones and their secretions, but now these are going to diminish. So however, can you just give me a moment, please? So at certain point of time, uh, yes, so at a certain point of time, these the body is used to these hormones, and now they're diminishing. So the body starts to the emotions and things, they start to get affected, and the functions of hormones can bring a host of issues as well. So as simple as it sounds, that it's just an age and it's just menopause, these are some of the stages a woman actually goes through during menopause, and these are the pre and the post menopause thing that happens after a woman stops to menstruate. So the typical symptoms of menopause are some hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness, decreased sex drive, and memory lapses, and dizziness. So it's not as simple as it's not just a stage for a woman, but it's more to it. There are many changes that a woman goes through during menopause. So the mental health issues that are associated with it, a very typical thing is mood swings. So mood swings are very common symptoms of menopause because of the low estrogen and estrogen levels in the body. which gives rise to irritability and anxiety and depression. So the mood changes greatly from one end to another. Like, for example, a person may be laughing, and then within minutes, there might be a very heightened emotions to a very downfall of it. So there are studies that show that women are 2 to 4 times more likely to experience a major depressive episode during menopause than other times of their life. In addition to the changing estrogen levels, there are other issues that are associated with menopause, like night sweats and hot flashes, which leave one to be cranky and anxious and irritable because that your body is going through changes, and there's these changes. Like your body is used to in a certain way, and now there is a huge change in the body if you don't sleep. Like, and a very common example is that if you don't sleep one night and for a week you're not able to sleep, you eventually there are emotions and there are activities that diminish. You're not that productive and you get cranky. So imagine a whole system is changing completely. So you can understand, you can relate how it's affecting a woman's mood. And the years leading up to menopause and the transition itself brings changes to your body, which is a huge phase to cope up with. uh, as I was saying before, that women's femininity is very much associated with menstruation. So at this point of time, once you have a menopause, your youth even starts to diminish, and woman, the standard of woman, typical woman beauty standards, you try to hold on to it. So these are the times where there is also something called midlife crisis, which happens. uh, so at this point of time, you know that you are growing old and you're not able to accept it. Also, this is also a very triggering sign that you're losing your youth. So these are some of the very common problems that a woman faces through during menopause. So I will be telling even some ways that can be help to deal with this certain transition of life. So as I was saying, that hormonal changes that define the transition to menopause causes minor or temporary issues, but also significant and longer lasting ones, and affect the quality of life. So these physical symptoms needs to be managed in a certain way along with emotional ones, to help women with the transition. So, for the emotional problems, the best way is to continue exercising and meditate. So, basically, the thing is that the effects of exercise has always been a good one, and social support systems usually it helps you to relate with others. So, it's the best part is to be a part of a social group which can relate to it. There are many support groups which help in it, and there are many counseling groups that a psychologist usually goes through. So you can join these support groups for an extra support. Then there are hot flashes, as I was mentioning. It's a very common thing in menopause. Even my mother had this problem. Uh, so I know these are some of the things. I also learned something personally from her because I saw her going through this whole stage. So the best way to manage the hot flashes is to, whenever you're having it, try to breathe slowly and deeply. Like immediately, just don't give away to the emotions that you're facing, but to give breathing slowly and deeply. Uh, Try to keep yourself hydrated and keep the environmental temperature under 70 if it's possible, like with the help of coolers or AC, or in the winters, use heater if possible. And it's best to avoid eat hot and spicy food at this time. Also, flaxseed and flaxseed oil is very much related to menopause. It helps to calm down the effects of menopause, so one can also try that. Then there are menopause is also associated with insomnia. So or lack of sleep. You're not able to sleep during the night, which leaves the whole day to be cranky and stuff. Like if you're not able to sleep, not only just your productivity level gets affected, but your mood also gets affected a lot. So the best thing to do is try to help yourself calm down before you sleep. So there are many ways to do it, like take a bath or try sedatives, which is not without the consent of doctors. So just try sedatives, or maybe meditate or cool the room before you sleep and help yourself out. Maybe listen to some light music, or consider to have CPAP, that is a continuous positive airway pressure, which is a device to help you breathe freely. so that it helps to calm you down. And weight gain is also a very big side effect of menopause. So at this point of time, after the menopause, a woman may suddenly start to gain weight. It's very similar to the puberty years, since your hormones over there is going through a change. So that is a very big point when women start to gain weight. So menopause is very similar. The sign, the symptom of it, is very similar to that of the puberty years. So the best, as I was saying, just the best is to, the normal things that you can do for keeping your weight under control is exercise, have a lot of fruits and vitamins in the food, uh, set a goal or target weight and do light exercises to keep it under the way, manage. There are many calorie tracking apps that one can try for. Keep yourself active. Maybe not, like sometimes it happens that it gets difficult for us to keep ourselves active regularly. So maybe try to walk the distance that you usually use the car for. Do a cardio maybe for 5 to 10 minutes if your health is permitting. Managing the stress is also a very important thing over here because that is very much related to weight gain. Other ways to cope up, other symptoms that a person may face through is vaginal dryness and urinary inconsistency. So as I was saying that at this point of time, often many women starts to develop uh, a woman often starts to develop the feeling that they're getting old, midlife crisis. So it somehow it affects the relationship as well. The woman is like, I'm losing my youth, so probably I am not gonna. The relationship between me and my partner is may not be the same anymore. And with added to is the menopause, where a person may face vaginal dryness, which may affect the intercourse with the partner. So at these point of times, you can often always seek for a professional help. But there are also certain things you can try on your own. That is using a vaginal thinner or a lubricant to help you feel natural. There are many lubricants in the market, but there are many silicone based which lasts longer. But the feeling of uncomfortedness is very much in it. So at this point of time, a water-based lubricant can be helpful. Vitamin E and flaxseed oil, I've already mentioned, these two are very helpful to help you relax and go through it, maintain the equilibrium. So you can try to have vitamin E and flaxseed oil to help your vagina and urinary symptom to diminish these symptoms. There are also oral supplements that you can take, which may help with. And there are again certain exercises that can be done, many yoga poses that actually helps to improve the sensation during intercourse and reduce the urinary inconsistency. So you can just always try for professional help, and these some of the things that I have mentioned. The next is memory problems. So basically, at certain point of time, even there are memory problems that start to arise with the menopause. So the best way to keep your memory is to by inculcate vitamins into the diet and cut out the alcohol, sugar, and caffeine to help you better. Then explore some memory strategies such as acronyms to remember the list of names of street. For example, such as POMB for the sequence of street like Pine Oak or Main and Broadway. So there are certain external groups as well that you can join for the help. There are certain numbers that are always available on the net to help you support, so you can also go through it. Next is the social ways to cope. That is helping to keep up with the relationships and social functioning. So you can always seek out to the people who genuinely care for you and share. Do not just keep it to yourself, but share with the people whom you feel comfortable with. It's a very good way to cope. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you. I will be stop sharing the screen. Does anyone have any other question?
Thank you, ma'am. It was a very informative session. We have been getting few questions. The first one being, we see few pregnancy women suicides after knowing it is a girl child. What's your suggestion? What's your take on it?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you please repeat it?
Okay. We see few pregnancy suicides after knowing it's a girl child. What is your take on that?
So this is basically a gender inconsistency that always happens. Woman gender is considered inferior, and there are again pressures from an in-law side. So, and it's also a general depression that a woman might go through while knowing that is pregnant. So it's all the factors that may lead to it, but it's not related. I would say that it's not related to simply a girl child. There are many other societal pressures and societal things that influence this kind of way. It's kind of like a coping mechanism. You want to end the thing and you don't know what to do, so sometimes a woman may end up doing it.
Okay. Now we have another question. Do we find any mood swings at pregnancy period?
Mood swings, yes, mood swings is very much associated with pregnancy. Since there are many hormonal changes that a woman is going through, so mood swings are a very extreme things that's always there in a pregnancy. So the best way to manage is to, there are yoga and many exercises that helps you to relax. And always there are some professional helps that one can seek, because often at these times of life, these are very common problems that one faces through, and maybe that is the reason these does not come in highlights. People just say that it's okay, everyone faces it, so don't concern yourselves. But the best way to do is to share it with someone you know, and you know it will support and accept you. So these are very common things that you can do. It's just that people don't just bring it in the highlights.
Okay, ma'am. Um, we have another question. Do you have therapy or medication suggestions for menopause?
uh, there, I'm sure there are medications, but I am a master's clinical psychology student, so medicine is usually a part of psychiatrist. So we usually do not recommend immediately medication if it can be treated by therapy. Medications are only for extreme conditions. So until and unless there are many extreme mood swings that one finds difficult to handle, psychiatrist is the best person whom you can approach for medication. They will know the best, but usually these things are managed by therapy. Since it's a child, the many things that can affect the child. So we try to avoid the medication and try to focus on the therapy itself, and it's very much compatible with it. It's not like the therapy doesn't affect. It may take time, but it usually helps.
Okay. I guess that answers the
Uh,
question. Thank
I
you.
hope I cleared every question.
Any further questions? I'll just a minute, ma'am. Okay, I guess the questions are done, ma'am. Thank you for the informational session. You have broken down the PPT into three things and gave your personal experiences also. It was very helpful. Thank you.